Well, good morning. Today is Tuesday, the 2nd of June, and we are in 1 Timothy chapter 5. We're going to look at verses 9 through 16. And again, Paul is giving Timothy some instruction regarding how to treat people in the church. And he's talked about widows, and now he's going to expand on that a little bit. Verse 9 says, "Do not let a widow under 60 years old be taken into the number, those under the church's care." And it says, and not unless she has been the wife of one man. In other words, she's chaste. Well reported for good works. If she has brought up children, if she has lodged strangers, if she has washed the saints' feet, if she has believed or relieved the afflicted, if she has diligently followed every good work. So, what were the requirements? This is the church taking care of its own, and this is vetting who is eligible. And so this is somebody who's an older woman, who is a woman of God who has only been married to one man. She's, what else does it say? It says, reported for good works. Okay. If she has brought up children, if she has lodged strangers, if she has washed the saints' feet, that's kind of a euphemism for just being a servant. If she has relieved the afflicted, she's done her part to help those in need. If she has diligently followed every good work, then add her to the roll, add her to the number, help her. Then he goes on, verse 11, "But refuse the younger widows, for when they have begun to grow wanton," it's not a word that we use very often. When she begins to grow wanton against Christ, they desire to marry, having condemnation because they have cast off their first faith. Besides, they learn to be idle, wandering about from house to house, and not only idle, but also gossips and busybodies, saying things which they ought not. Therefore I desire that the younger widows marry, bear children, manage the house, give no opportunity to the adversary to speak reproachfully. For some have already been turned aside after Satan. If any believing man or woman has widows, let them relieve them, and do not let the church be burdened, that it may relieve those who are really widows. So he's not necessarily throwing everyone in the same pot. What he's saying is, in regards to widows, Timothy, if they're over 60 years old and they have a good reputation of being a godly person, a person who has had a family, taken care of her family, served the saints, helped those in need, then take them into the role and take care of them. if they're not 60 years old, if they're younger, and I mean, I guess that's a relative term, a relative age. But think about what he's saying. He's saying if they're younger, don't bring them under the roll, because when you do, they're gonna have ambitions, and they're gonna want to find another man. So they'll be courting people, and then you're supporting them in their lifestyle while they're going out and buying clothes to attract men. And well, what's he trying to say is that those who you bring into the role need to be, they're brought under the church's care so that they can better serve the church, not themselves. Not become idle, just sitting around having a gossip session with other widows. But they need to be fruitful in the service of the church. He talks about what he would rather have them do is he just go ahead and remarry. Don't be a burden to the church, but remarry and take care of a family. It's still the case that women tend to live longer than men. It was especially the case in the first century. Men, I mean, they didn't have health care. They didn't, they'd wear out. They'd have a heart attack, a lot of them, or whatever. Same kind of things that would take people out today took them out then, only much younger. And so you had widows in their 30s, 40s, some of them even younger, because sometimes they would marry older men, because before the man could marry, he had to be able to provide for a family, so he wouldn't have been a kid. So sometimes, he'd be in his late 20s or whatever and marry a teenage girl. It was arranged weddings and everything else. So the man might be 35 years old, marry a young girl. They're married 10 years, and he dies. Well, here's this young woman. She's a widow. But she's not to be brought in under the church's care. She's to go and remarry, have a family. And that's Paul's advice. How do we apply this passage to our life? What's Paul? What's this instruction to Timothy about? I reiterate what I said yesterday. Timothy was a young pastor in a church, probably Ephesus, because he did pastor there. He was a young pastor in a city and he had people that were born again, that from all walks of life, all ages, and that's the how does a young man shepherd a flock of people older than him, younger than him, all ages in between? He's going to be dealing with these issues. And so Paul's just giving him advice on how to deal with older men, older women, younger men, younger women. Treat them as parents, treat them as brothers and sisters. Treat widows with respect. Take them into your care if they But here are the qualifications. Here are the things they need, the standard they need to meet. And if they meet that, then by all means, take care of them. They need the help. And so this is all just practical. Thankfully, we need to understand that historically, if you think about historically, nursing homes, hospitals, orphanages, schools, many of them were all started by the church. The church founded many of these organizations throughout history. It's only in fairly recent history that the government, the state, has taken on some of these causes, and also independent businesses taken over some of these things. And of course, they charge astronomical prices for some of these things. But, originally, taking care of widows, taking care of orphans, was something that the church did. And how does the church deal with these things today? Well, in some cases, they do direct hands-on, just similar to what we read here. That's not often the case, however, but there are Christian ministries that do these things, and oftentimes they're supported by local churches. I think of Baptist Children's Home here in North Carolina. We have that entity as far as the state Baptist churches working together to support a ministry that provides foster care and takes care of orphans. There's also living centers for Christians that retire and need to go into some type of a facility that will take care of their health and so forth. And so there's places like this. There's ministries out there that support feeding people who are hungry, putting clothes on their back, providing eye exams and blood, take blood screens and different medical dental work. I've seen missionaries go to countries and just do dental work. And so there are ministries like that. Not one single church would probably be able to undertake all those things, but when we pool our resources together, is what we do as Southern Baptists, we support those types of things corporately, and we cooperate together to support those ministries. And it works. It's not perfect, but it's how we do ministry. Here in this passage, Paul's given Timothy some guidelines for vetting widows and who gets taken care of. And you have to have something. You have to have some way of vetting who gets help. Every church I've ever been pastor of or a member of, there was a benevolence fund, and it was there to help those in need in the community. And it takes a lot of discernment to know, well, if by helping this individual in need, am I really helping them, or am I just enabling them to continue to not be able to afford to pay their electric bill because they're drinking it, or they're taking drugs? And so sometimes by just handing them a check to pay their utility bills isn't really helping them, it's enabling. And so you need discernment, and you need to be prayerful, and you need to carefully vet those who have a need. And it's not easy. And sometimes you have to turn people away. And that's what Paul's getting at here. He's just saying, basically, use some common sense, help those who really need help, but examine their life. Do they have what's their reputation? And so it's important to know who you are supporting. And if you can't verify and carefully vet somebody, then don't just throw money at it thinking, well, I've done my duty. No. It's a little more difficult than that. But that's one of the jobs that the pastor has. And Timothy had that job, and Paul's just giving him some advice on how to handle this kind of situation. So that's all I have for today. I hope you have a blessed day, and we'll see you again tomorrow.